I'm Kay Wilkes, the host of Pondering Thoughts podcast, the podcast for curious minds. I support Black excellence, and I am dripping in Black.
Welcome to the Dripping in Black podcast, where we celebrate Black excellence throughout the Black diaspora. Our special guest host is Dominic Lawson from the Black is America podcast.
What's up, good people all across the world? This is the Dripping in Black podcast. I am your guest host, Dominic Lawson, multi-award-winning podcaster in many different genres. Many people know me for the award-winning show Black is America, where I highlight little-known African-American figures and other stories. And so I just want to say thank the man behind the glass at Square for this opportunity once again to be with you, the Dripping in Black family. Now, before I continue, now you got to see the drip. Got to see the drip right here, right? So if you want to, I know you like the fit. It's dope. I know. So if you want to be dope like me, make sure you go to dibkdripshop.com to get this and all of your favorite Dripping in Black merchandise, from this gear here to mugs and everything else. But let me get back to the task at hand. She is a veteran of radio and TV. She is the host of the Pondering Thoughts podcast, a welcoming space for curious minds to explore life's big questions and fresh ideas. She's also a bit of a hip hop head. We're going to talk about that a little bit, right? And whether she's podcasting, traveling, or savoring the perfect cup of coffee, she is constantly embracing life, learning, and storytelling, which anybody who knows me is near and dear to my heart. I am thrilled today to have the one, the only, Kay Wilkes. Kay Wilkes, what's going on?
Oh my God, I love that intro. Ooh, I need to put that in a bottle and keep it in my pocket or something. I just want to keep it with me. I love it.
When you have Black excellence, in the building, you got to make sure you come through with it. But it's an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So you know what? Let's just kind of start from the beginning. Who is Kay Wilkes? What is Kay Wilkes all about? What makes her tick?
Sure. So again, my name is Kay Wilkes. I'm the host of Pondering Thoughts podcast, a podcast for curious and inquisitive minds. A little bit more about me from the DMV. For those that aren't familiar with that acronym, that means DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So born and raised, although I've lived in other places. At a young age, I had a passion for the arts and theater. A lot of that started from my mom. And then, moving on through high school, I was on a syndicated teen talk show. And then from there, even though I was from the DMV area, moved out to California because my goal was to be in entertainment. Worked in radio for a while locally. When I came back to the DMV area, did, quite a few internships, but life just kind of moved in a different direction. And right now work in human resources, which is totally different. But that passion for like entertainment and journalism never left. And 2023, I decided, I'm just going to go and do podcasting. And a lot of people that were close to me were like, this is totally up your alley. 100%. And the thing that I loved about podcasting, especially since I had a chance to work in radio years ago, was that it's my own voice. I didn't feel like I would have to compromise in terms of like my messaging. I'm the writer, the producer. Right now I have someone that helps with editing, but I really like that. So I can make sure that whatever's coming out is something that's authentic to me. And I'm also a lover of music. I love jazz. I love hip hop. A lot of times I describe myself in relationship to other people because I'm close to my family. So I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a proud aunt, I'm a friend, I'm a cousin, and I'm just an overall lover of life. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. I want to hear more about that theater background and that part. Did you play any big roles? Were you the person kind of like behind the scenes? What was your role in the theater and things like that?
So when I was younger, so my mom was a big arts person. I remember going to see The Wiz when Stephanie Mills was Dorothy. So that's taking you way back.
Okay.
But when I was younger, I did different plays like in school and then in the DC area as a part of a young thespian group. And we would perform at different places like the National Theater and then different other places. And so I had like different roles. And then fast forwarding into my 20s, I was a member of the Urban League here in Washington, D.C. And we would do like fundraising plays. So we did a play, we did The Wiz. And I was one of the crows. And at first they wanted me to be the backup for the Scarecrow, aka Michael Jackson's role. But I really cannot carry a tune. I was like, no, I'll just stick being the crow. But that was fun. So that was my last time actually being on stage. And that was a while ago because I'm in my late 40s now. But yeah, that passion started younger. And I actually need to kind of catch up on a play soon. But yeah, it started at a very young age, but it started with my mom.
You know what? First of all, shout out to your mom. And that leads me to my next question because recently my mentor bought me, my wife, and my daughter tickets to the theater to go see Wicked, right?
Mm.
And I had never been to the theater before, like to see a play. I know, right? So Memphis, Tennessee, this that, and the other. 42 years old this past week. Never had. Thank you. Never been to the theater, right? And it was definitely an experience. Like, oh, this is really cool, right? And so you hear about places like L.A. and New York and they have the theater and stuff like that, but we only have one here in Memphis. But my question to you is this: talk about the importance of young Black children being engaged in the theater, whether it be on stage, behind the scenes, or just going to watch a show. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the arts in so many ways, I think it just really kind of expands your mind. I know you mentioned that you're a huge storyteller, and I think just seeing people just being able creatively to tell a story on stage. And sometimes there's so many things like in a nuance that I think is beautiful. And I think for a lot of children or Black children, I think sometimes, especially in this day and age, sometimes we do not have voice or the words to kind of express the way we feel. And for someone to be able to kind of depict it in certain characters and depict it in different stories on stage, I think it really kind of gives life and voice to what people are feeling. Another thing I think about the arts in general, it just kind of opens up your mind. It expands your mind to different things. It challenges your way of thinking, and I think there's something to be said about tapping into that creative part of your mind and just seeing the way someone can, like I said, take a story, create these different characters, and then even kind of expand your mindset. I think is a beautiful thing. And I think if we continue to foster curiosity and creativity in young kids and young Black kids, we'll be able to make a lot of changes because sometimes we have to kind of step out of quote unquote the reality as we see it, but we have to be able to imagine or reimagine. I think that's what the arts does.
I love that. I love that. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the correlation between arts and, good grades, analytical
Yep.
thinking,
Yep.
and things of that nature. Because it seems like, for years now, it seems like a real attack on the arts,
I agree.
and trying to get it out of the schools and stuff like that which is highly unfortunate because
I agree.
that is how we learn a lot of life lessons.
Mhm.
Right. So I definitely wanted to pick your brain on that. Kind of talk to me about your journalism career in your 20s and things of that nature.
Sure. Well, I don't know if I'll actually call myself a journalist, but I'll tell you a
Okay,
little bit about my journey.
let's
So
do it. Let's do it.
from a young age. So, like I said, when my mom exposed me to the arts, I think that's where the seed, was planted in terms of me wanting to perform or possibly be in entertainment. And I remember vividly being around like 9 or 10 years old and looking in the mirror and thinking and saying to myself, if I am not a star, I don't think my life is worth living. Okay, that's very dramatic. But I think that I always felt like that's what I wanted to do. So, like I said, when I was younger, I did a lot of theater. And then once I got into, when I was a teenager, I was on like this teen talk show. Then I graduated from high school. In college, I knew I wanted to pursue a career in entertainment. So I did like quite a few like internships. And right after I graduated from college, I still had that passion, but I started teaching and then I landed a job in radio. So I was working in marketing and promotion. So for people familiar with radio, you have like the street team, like the promotions team. So I oversaw the promotions team. So we would do like a lot of events. And then I decided to pick up and move to California. So I was working in radio here. And I said, you know what? I was like, I'm just going to go. I'm going to pursue it. My best friend at the time was in grad school out there. And I went out there to try to give entertainment a shot. I was there for like 6 months. Pretty much, I was running out of money. I was like, I can't be living with my best friend for free. Came back home, started teaching, and that's when things kind of shifted and I moved away from that passion. So I was a teacher, I was a fitness instructor. I joke with people, I say I have such a colorful resume, landed in HR, and then but that passion never left. And I was hearing more and more about podcasting, and I was like, I'm just going to do it. I was like, what do I have to lose? And I think it's been one of the best decisions I've made.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And forgive me for that misspeak earlier. No, definitely
But
wanted
I
to clear
like that
that up.
because I am an aspiring journalist, so
Hey, listen,
I'll take
listen.
that.
And listen, and you know what it is, and Dripping the Black Family, because I've listened to the Pondering Thoughts podcast, and it put me in that field. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I just assume. So forgive me on that. And you do feel like a journalist on your show. And once again, Dripping the Black Family, that is the Pondering Thoughts podcast. You can find that on any of your major podcast platforms. And I listened to your conversation with Dr. Daniel Swan. Phenomenal episode, by the way. So great insights as far as like from social media to AI and stuff like that. And before I kind of get into that particular conversation, just kind of talk about your thought process and who you bring on the show, why you bring them on the show, what type of conversations are you trying to have with them? Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. And it's interesting you mentioned Dr. Daniel Swan because I've had him on the show twice. And
Mm-hmm.
I agree, he is definitely a brilliant thinker. And for those of you all who haven't checked out the episode, I just had him return on the show recently to talk about the effects of social media. But prior to that, I had him on the show in season 2 to talk about the intersection of race and religion, specifically from the standpoint of a Black atheist. So he's done a lot of study about that. So it was a very interesting conversation. But in terms of like how I choose my guests, I really just follow my curiosity. Like I said, I'm a naturally curious person. So a lot of the topics are just generated by things that I'm curious about. I'm a big NPR listener. I love CBS Sunday Morning. So every time I watch it, like something will come up and I'm like, oh my gosh, that would be really cool to have someone on the show. And so I just start researching different things. I'll reach out to people. And because I have such a wide interest, it's a combination of what I'm interested in. Sometimes it's from conversations I'm having with different people. And I'm like, you know what, that would be really cool to have someone on the show to talk about it. So one thing I love about having a podcast is that it gives me the opportunity to talk to people and have deep conversations with people that I probably wouldn't be able to otherwise. Like if it's someone that I was interested in talking to, if I was like, oh, can we just go for coffee? They were like, no. But I was like, oh, if you want to be on my podcast, they were like, oh, perhaps then, we can reconsider this. So I love having a platform where I can do that.
Right, and it allows you to, like you said, kind of foster that curiosity and that low key nerdism you talk about in your bio for sure. But no, it was a fascinating conversation with Dr. Swan and talking about AI. I was really fascinated by how from the how the kids raise your hands like this now, and now they just kind of a little bit here
Yep.
and stuff like that. I didn't realize that. My wife is an education consultant, so I don't really go into the
Mm.
classroom with her as much, and so it made me like, oh, I wonder if she's seen that too in her work and things of that nature. But also, and you kind of got into this conversation as well with him about Gen Z and Generation Alpha, kind of being, not necessarily willing to engage in adversity and things of that nature. Kind of talk about that part of your conversation with him, but also maybe some of the adversity you faced in your podcasting career here now.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting part of the conversation. I think that a lot of the kids now, I think their level of resilience has kind of diminished to a certain degree for a number of reasons. And again, like one thing that he and I talked about, I don't know if this was actually recorded on the show. Oh, I think I did mention this on the show too, just even from like working in HR. I even noticed
Hmm.
that too, in terms of the difference in some of the younger, I shouldn't say kids, they're not kids, but some of the younger,
Young
the young,
people.
the younger people that are
Yeah.
coming into the workforce. And, it's interesting how he was even talking about how social media and what they are seeing is kind of feeding that to a large degree. So it's definitely a shift in terms of how I overcome adversity in podcasting. I think the biggest thing for me is just having a good network of people that you can like bounce things off of. I tell people I think one of the two best things that I have done as a podcaster is joining the Black Podcasters Association and going Afros and Audio. And I say
Hey.
that because when right before I started my podcast, there was someone that provided like consulting services, and she was a part of both of those organizations. She said, those are two things you must do. Those are the best decisions. And the reason why I mention that is because as I'm kind of coming up against like some stumbling blocks, just having people that I can talk to, and maybe like in a chat, or if I'm going to an Afros and Audio festival, like meeting people and just having that sense of community, I think really helps me. The other thing too is just like my sister. I'm very close to my sister, so sometimes like I really do not like social media, but I got on social media because of the podcast and that whole comparison thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I mean, because prior to me doing my podcast, I had like a personal page, but I was like, you do not need to see what I ate today, where I'm going, where I'm vacationing. So now just kind of getting into that whole, I don't know, that whole zone of having to post stuff and
You
how
got to
many
give
followers.
people, you got to give
Yeah.
people a piece of you, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And that's been really challenging for me. So just kind of working through, I would say just a growing pains of podcasting, but I will say having that sense of community, going to Afros and Audio every year, staying connected with the BPA. And also I meditate too. So
Okay.
just on a side note, I think that kind of helps to keep me grounded and centered as well. But it's
Yeah.
ongoing.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that self-care routine, because podcasting can definitely be a
Mm,
grind, based on everything you were saying, and definitely that social media piece, as far as like got to give people a piece of you. And you and Dr. Swan kind of talked about that, and he kind of uh, talked about this phrase, the attention economy is kind of
yes.
where we are, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what's leveraged. Well, now that I think about it, because in that conversation, and I think it was either you or Dr. Swan talked about how you start to see some of these people where you saw them on social media at first, and now they're getting like acting gigs and this, that, and the other. And I know in your background, you went off to California, you try to be on TV and things of that nature. I guess I'm curious, what are some of those other changes that you saw? That's kind of different now, where back then it wasn't about social media
Yep.
following and this, that, and the
Yep.
other. Right
Yep.
now, it's about the attention economy. Kind of talk about those differences, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I loved it when we were talking about that because I was like, I'm not going to try to get on my soapbox. But one thing that
You can get on your soapbox here if you want to. So,
you probably be able to appreciate this too, given your background. But I think the one thing that I struggle with, even being a podcaster, and it could be like my age too, sometimes I get so frustrated because I kind of feel like right now the focus is, well, let me shift back. I heard this quote before. They said at one time people will focus on doing something well to become successful. Or, yeah, now it's kind of like reverse. Like now people they're just kind of grabbing attention for success. And so I just like, for me, and I was like, I try not to be judgmental, but sometimes I sit here and I'm thinking to myself, like I was talking about my journey. I'm like,
hmm
golly, I remember I was like, intern at BT, intern at a local TV station, writing for the newspaper. I was like, trying to grind to kind of work my way through. But I think that built resilience and it also built a skill set.
that's true.
And now I'm looking, I was like, all these people need to do. Okay, let me kind of back up because I can even see the tone of my voice changing. But now I see people, they'll just have like a YouTube channel, they'll put out something outlandish, and it's just having a certain amount of followers. And now they're getting like gigs, they're, doing this, they're doing that. And I was like, I don't want to be a hater. But then I'm sitting there thinking to myself, of these people who really take their craft seriously, I was like, and they are getting things that people dream of. But then again, my whole philosophy, sometimes life is all about luck and what you do with it. But it does kind of bother me a little bit because I think about people who really are focused on their craft and
hmm
really take it seriously. Like they're like true journalists. Like a lot of times now, people you see on TV, they're not really journalists, they're commentators. Even when you think about sports, like when you think about sports journalists, you'll think about someone like James Brown. But now they have a
hmm
lot of ex players that are coming in and they're doing a good job. But when you're thinking about like thorough journalism, you're thinking about like James Brown, Brian Gumble, like those are true
Right.
journalists. And nothing, I mean, because it's good to have that commentate, someone as a commentator, but there's appreciation for like journalism because you're digging a little deeper. And I think that's what I appreciate, like someone who just kind of takes their craft seriously. Again, not trying to be a hater, but I think you'd appreciate that, Dominic.
No, listen, listen. Where I am in the season I'm in right now, you have
Hmm.
no idea, because I'm having certain conversations, right? Because I always brand myself as the person who, when you go to the Oscars and you watch for Best Picture, and the film that wins for best picture is like, everybody's like, what film is that? I've never heard of that film. That's me. Right? I don't have, there's the commercial success and then there's the critical acclaim, right? And so, no, I understand what you mean, but I also have understood and kind of noticed this though, right? Some of those people who have those large social media followings, they're actually good at what they do. Fair enough, right? And they have
Valid
staying
point.
power. And I think the some that was strictly just follower based, attention based, like they get the shot. But it's like at that point that bill comes due, and then you realize like, oh, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Prime example. The I can't think of her government name, but the Hatua girl, right?
I do not know what that is.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's fine. It's not important.
Okay.
She went viral, this, that, and the other on this thing, and everybody started like, who is this girl? Who is that girl? This, that, and the other. And then she started a podcast, and then her podcast was like number 3 in the charts of Spotify, like right behind Joe Rogan and then Tucker Carlson or whatever, right? But recently she like fell out of the top 100 because once we started to hear more of her and this, that, and the other, I was like, oh, there's nothing there. She had a moment, and now all of a sudden, like now we're starting to hear her talk this, that, and the other, like, oh, no, dear. No.
I'll have to check this one out.
So I think it's a situation, at least that's what I've been seeing, that like, it's a cliche, but like cream always rises to the top, but I think cream also stays at the top, right? Because you could have a Denzel go viral, but Denzel's going to stay on top because Denzel knows it's a craft, and a craft that's to be honed, refined, retooled, refocused, and all the things, right? So, so no, I'm on that soapbox with you too, because I'm definitely in, like I said, in a certain season of understanding the certain parts of this podcast business specifically. So no, I'm with you.
Good. We have more room. If anyone else wants to join us on the soapbox, I'll kind of move over to the side.
I love that. I am curious though, kind of since we're on the topic, when you were in California and pursuing that part of your career, what were some of those, things that you saw about entertainment where you was like, this part is cool and this and the other, but this part of it, like, no, that ain't for me? Because I know I've been noticing that for myself as well. I'm curious if you had that similar experience.
I don't think I noticed, like when I was out in California, I was just like in pursuit. So I really did get a chance to like kind of really break in. But when I was in radio, I remember there were certain things I was seeing, and I just remember I was like, some things just did not sit well with. I mean, it was nothing egregious, but just something that was just like, I was just kind of feeling, I was like, man, if I really try to move into this industry, I was like, it's going to be a little tough, because I was like, I can't compromise, who I am. And I'll never forget my best friend. When I moved out there, she was like, okay, this is what we need to do. She said, we need to get you on a reality show. And then once you get on a reality show, that's how you will break in. So that kind of ties in what we were talking about earlier. And I looked at her, she was like, that wouldn't work for you. I said, no, that wouldn't work for me. I was like, unless it's like something like HGTV where I'm just, showing houses. I mean, but I was like, if it's something where, you have to, I don't know, be a character or a caricature, I was like, that probably wouldn't sit well with me. And just getting back to my intro, when I was saying I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, maybe I'm just old school, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm a Wilkes. I mean, my family's still important. I was like, I have a niece, I have nieces, I have a nephew, I have a sister, I have uncles, I have friends. So I have to be careful. I mean, you need to be true to yourself. It's not like I'm trying to hide anything, but some things just aren't. It's just not worth it, and I just have to balance that out.
Yeah, some stuff just ain't kosher.
There you go. It just ain't kosher.
That ain't kosher, right? Like that's just whatever. Because I remember. I had that moment when we were at the Webbies. And so a lot of times when you go to podcasts like galas and award shows and stuff like that, right, there's the talent, the person you hear on the podcast is the other, and like 50 other people with them, like worked on the show, like producers or like mostly marketing people. It's always marketing people. And they act more superstarish than the talent does. And I'm like, come on, man. Like, and so I think that's some of the stuff I've seen personally where it's like, yeah, I don't I understand the game and what
Right.
it takes and this and the other, but like I don't like this part. This part, I don't like this part.
Was it like
But
the pretentiousness of it, or what was it
oh
specifically that just
yes,
was just like rubbing you the wrong way?
prime example. And seeing as that you're from the DMV, you know who this person is I'm about to talk about. He was not the egregious person. It was somebody else. Long story short, we're at the Webbies. We're in New York on the red carpet, getting ready to go into the event, right? And so like I'm in line, my wife's in line, and Michael Steele, right, the former lieutenant governor of Maryland, is behind us, right? He was cool, not the problem here. There was this young lady who was there with her team. She was part of marketing and this, that, and the other, right? And she was like, she was talking to the security guy, and she's like, "Where's the VIP?" And the security guy like, "Ma'am, there's only one line." Like, no, but I'm in VIP. I'm like, "Ma'am, there's one line." Right. So I'm like sitting up here looking at my wife, looking at the security guard, looking at Michael Steele, like, "Ma'am, if Michael Steele is behind me, what makes you think you finna go, above, in front of us and this, that, and the other," right? So it's like, it's that part, right?
Yeah.
It's usually the people who, I'm not saying they don't have important functions. Let me be very clear about that. But they're not talent. And so it's like, why are you acting like this? And so it's like, I told my wife and I tell everybody around me, like, listen, if I ever get like that, slap me. Please slap me, because just seeing that just made me cringe.
It's like,
right?
what they call, like, famous adjacent or whatever. Like
that famous adjacent, that I could put perfectly, Kay, put perfectly. So it's like, it's just, it is what it is. Dripping the Black family. We are talking to Kay Wilkes, the curator and host of Pondering Thoughts podcast. Make sure you subscribe to that podcast on all of your major podcast platforms. I gave you a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, by the way.
Thank
So just want to make
you.
sure I got that in there. So, because here at Dripping the Black, we support. We don't help. We support.
Thank you.
We put our money where our mouth is. I'm curious though. What's the plans for you and the Pondering Thoughts podcast? What's the goals? What's the plans? Trying to put it on NPR, eventually or something like that. What's the goals for the podcast?
Let me say, like, NPR is like my standard. Like when I listen to NPR, I mean, of course, that's like the goal. I just love the energy, the vibe. I think they're very thoughtful in terms of the way they approach like the news. I'm like, something horrific could happen in the world, and I'd rather listen to it on NPR than someplace else, because even their voice. And then they always have like really cool names like Meghna Chakrabarti, Michelle Norris. It's like, so I have to switch up Kay Wilkes. I was like, I don't know if that has like the NPR theme, but anyway, getting back to
I kind of dig it. Like the Kay Wilkes, like, I think it's the just the 2 syllables, right?
Oh,
like Kay Wilkes. I think it works. That's just me though.
Okay.
That's just me though.
All right. Okay, I can dig that. But in terms of like long term, so right now I just celebrated 1 year of the podcast. I feel that I'm still, thank you. I feel like right now I'm still trying to find my voice and really kind of determine what the next steps would be. Like ultimately, like right now it's just audio. Like I do a couple video clips on social media, but I would want to move to it doing it on video so we can have like more subscribers on YouTube. But I really feel like I'm still in the learning stages, but I definitely want to kind of expand my reach, and not reach just to have reach, but to build a sense of community, to just kind of really inspire people to think deeper about the world around them. So to answer your question, I feel like I still kind of feel like a baby, even though it's been a year. I still feel like I'm still like a baby in podcasting, and I want to just be a better interviewer, a better host, a better quote unquote journalist, whatever that means. So I think that's like where I am right now.
No, I'm here. I'm here for it. I think you do a wonderful job. And while I think you may think as yourself as a baby, believe it or not, a year in, that kind of makes you a vet as well. Because I don't know if you know this or not, but like about, what is it? After episode 3, 90% of podcasters are done.
I heard that before.
Yeah, they're done. Right. And you know why that is, right? Because like a lot of people have gotten to podcasting over the past couple of years, especially since 2020. And people have that one hot take on social media. And then there's that friend, you just start a podcast, right? You start a podcast, right? And then they start a podcast and they repeat that hot take. So yeah, that was funny. That was thoughtful. That was poignant. What else you got? Because remember, to Dr. Swan's point, we are in the attention economy. So once you get my attention, you have to keep my attention. And I don't think that's the part. And that kind of goes back to that cream stays at the top part.
Right.
I think, right? Like, I don't think a lot of people who are going for the virality of it understand that you got to keep my attention, because just going back to the hot tour example and this and the other, sustainability beats virality every day of the week.
Agreed.
Every day of the week.
Agreed.
Right. So, I mean, you being a year in, that is phenomenal. And that kind of makes you a vet in the game, believe it or not.
Thank you. And you just saying that just drives home my point earlier when I was saying that one of the best things I've done is like join the Black Podcasters Association and the Afros and Audio, because the reason why we're here today is because of that.
Right.
Like, I met Sean, who was the creator producer of this show, at that event. He and I started talking, and even you just supporting me and giving me 5 stars, I think it just emphasizes that importance of community. I was like, we have to support each other. I don't think we should support each other just to support each other, but I'm sure there was sincerity in that. Obviously, you like the show because you're making references to quite a few things that we talked about, but I think it just drives home the importance of finding your tribe, those people that are going to support you and help you be better. You don't want to just hear people to tell you yay, yay, when really it's a nay, nay. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely.
Honest critique. So that's been very instrumental.
No, absolutely. It's very important to be engaged with the community, and not only to support community, but also allow community to help you.
I agree.
Right. Because it goes both ways. It definitely goes both ways. So, you, like I said, you have many different topics, and different type of guests on your show. Is there a guest or a topic or something that you really want to have on the Pondering Thoughts? Right. And it can be whoever, like maybe it's TT Michelle, right? Or maybe it's Barack Obama or somebody, right? Like who's that one guest? Like, if I could just get this guest, it would make everything just awesome.
I'm so glad you asked that question.
Big game hunting. Let's go.
And Dominic, you being who you are, if you got an inside connect, I'm just messing with you. I'll tell you who.
I might. You never know.
You know what? The answer will always be no if you never ask, right?
That's true.
So let's see. There's 2 people that come to mind, but the first person is Wynton Marsalis. So let me just tell you, like, when I say I do love, I love jazz, and Wynton Marsalis, and this even ties into our earlier conversation when you were talking about the importance of arts. He has been a huge proponent of really kind of pushing the arts and appreciation of arts and jazz. And not only is he an amazing jazz artist, he's really an intellectual. Like, sometimes I just like hearing interviews with him. So I would just love to just talk to him about really just life. What are some of his pondering thoughts? So Wynton Marsalis would be one. Oh, you just asked me for one, but if I
I want the second one. Give me the second one.
If I could just add a little bonus in there,
go for it.
The other person would be Jason Johnson. He's actually you may see him on like MSNBC. He's actually a professor at like Morgan State too. But I just love his insight. So those would be 2 people. If I could get them on my show, I would love to have them on my show to talk about a variety of topics. So those would be like.
You should reach out to him.
See, now I'm speechless.
You should reach out to him. Hit him up in the DM. Like, real talk. I'll give you an example.
See, I'm pausing, but see, I'm open. I'm open to any feedback. So I'm listening.
Listen.
School me.
So I remember, so I used to have a business show, The Startup Life, right? It was about business, entrepreneurship, this, that, and the other, right? And so I see this name come across my timeline because, obviously I'm posting about business and stuff like that. That's what the algorithm is going to be affixed to that, right?
Yep.
I see this name, Mark Randolph. I'm like, who is Mark Randolph? He got 2,500 followers. Who is this dude? He's the co-founder and the first CEO of Netflix. And I was like, business show? Okay. If I get this dude, it's going to be dope, right? So I hit him up in the DM. It's like, hey, Mark, I love what you're doing. I think you have a phenomenal, story. I would love for you to come on the show, right? And he was like, let's do it. And so the 150th episode of that show, The Startup Life, I interviewed the co-founder and the first CEO of Netflix. He told me about how they started, with the mind, the thinking process behind it, all the things, why he eventually stepped aside to let the other guy he started with, kind of take over the company and move from the DVDs in the mail to the streaming and stuff you see now. But yeah, shoot. All I'm saying is shoot your shot, Kay.
Wow.
All I'm saying is
Wow.
shoot your shot. And honestly, from there, once I booked him, other people saw that, like, who is this skinny, awkward black kid in Memphis interviewing the co-founder and the first CEO of Netflix? And so from there, I got the founder of Paychex, and you're in HR, so you know who Paychex is. The founder of Paychex, the founder of Dunkin' Donuts, the founder of Route 21, the chief marketing officer of MasterCard, the president of the board at JetBlue, right? And so, like, all these people start coming on the show because they was like, well, we got to be on that show too if that dude's on the show. And so it can honestly, it could be like that one thing is almost like this chain of events that just kind of propels you. So see, this is why we have community. Shoot your shot.
There you go.
Shoot your shot.
I
That's
think,
all I'm saying.
You know what? We're talking about like Black excellence and dripping in black, but this Black excellence, I think part of it is like community, like supporting each other.
Right.
So I appreciate you saying. My sister said the same thing. She was asking me the other day. She was like, "You should reach out to them." I was like, and I just like I was just speechless when you mentioned. I was like, but then she and I always say this to each other. The answer will always be no. If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. I was like, what do I have to lose?
No.
So
it would always be no. I would shoot your shot. I mean, I imagine he has like a website or something. I would just say shoot your shot. Like, hey, I'm Kay Wilkes, Pondering Thoughts podcast. I really love what you've done with, in your journey, in your career, and this and the other. I'm a lover of the arts. I would love to just talk about, what you have going on, your background, your thought process. I'll just put it out there. I'm just putting it out there.
I love that. And you know what? If that comes into fruition, I'm going to reach out to you. And I was like, I may just have to send either one of them a clip. I'm like, look, this person inspired me, moved me, pushed me out of my comfort zone. So I'm here today. So, okay. All right. That may be my challenge.
I just think the thing is, like, at the end of the day, these people like a Wynn Marsalis or Mark Randolph or whoever, they're people at the end of the day, right? And when you have a genuine interest in them, especially if you can pull out, I remember that one time when you was in 7th grade and I read your book and I was in, and you said in 7th grade you did this. Like, nobody knows that because nobody else read the book, right? So that you can be amazed how far something like that can go.
You know, one thing I'm finding, and I know you probably can relate to this too. One thing that I'm finding being in podcasting, because I'm usually of course I'm interviewing other people, is people really enjoy when people take a genuine curiosity in them.
100%. 100%. I remember having a guest on a show one time, and I actually read through the one pager, read the book and this and the other. And it said something about farming llamas in Wisconsin. I was like, that is a weird factoid or whatever. And so I brought it up in the show, and he's like, you know what? That's actually not true. I just wanted to see if people actually read the one pager. And you're the first person who did that. And so from there, he just gave me gold and gems and trinkets and more jewels and rubies and sapphires and all the things in the form of conversation, right? But I think, and I think you do a great job of this on your show, is like being just generally curious, right? And I think when you're able to do that, you're able to have a greater conversation. That's why I listened to the podcast before I came on to talk with you, right? I think, this is a human interaction. This is something that, we're bonding, we're connecting on a different level here. And so it's like, when you can do that with a person, they're gonna open up more. My wife, like I said, my wife's an education consultant, so she always talk about this effective filter. When you first meet somebody, there's this wall that's up, right? But if you start taking curiosity into people, you start taking some of those bricks down, and now there's a flow of communication that can happen between us, right? So
I like that.
Shoot your shot, Kate. Shoot your shot. Like, what are we doing?
You know what? I should record your voice and have it as a ringtone. So every time my phone is like, shoot your shot, Kay.
Shoot your
Shoot
shot.
your shot.
Shoot your shot. Thank you so much again, Dripping the Back family. We are talking to the wonderful and the magnificent, and soon to be talking to Wynn Marcellus, Kay Wilkes of the Pondering Thoughts podcast. We're just gonna speak that into existence there. Kay, I'm curious. Outside of podcasting, like I said, you have run the gamut of like creativity and art and culture and this, that, and the other. Are there any other projects that you're interested in? Like, no, I would love to, write for this, or I would love to produce that, or something like that. Any other projects you're interested in?
You know what? I haven't really thought about that. I think
Okay.
that like podcasting right now, outside of, the usual 9 to 5 has been one of the biggest things I've been focusing on. And I probably need to think about that a little bit more. I'm really trying to figure out how I can like leverage podcasting to kind of tap into some other things, like things I haven't even thought about. Like I'm a big book lover, and sometimes I've seen some influencers or some people who started in podcasting. They started a podcast and now they're being invited to, I don't know, be a host and moderate someone on stage to talk about different topics. So, God willing and the creek don't rise, I think that would be fun too. That
Okay.
may be a platform as well. So I guess I'm really trying to focus on Black excellence in the terms of like how I'm producing and creating content for this podcast and just seeing how I can leverage it. But I appreciate you telling me to shoot my shot, because I think one thing that I really need to work through was just kind of like just fear.
Mm-hmm.
Just a lot of fear that kind of comes with, putting yourself out there. Because I would consider myself more of a private person. So even when I was talking about the social media, just that type of exposure too, because we're living in a different day and age. So you're just trying to be careful about how much you
100%.
put out there.
Yeah.
Even with my name and my information, sometimes I'm careful, try to be careful about like how much I'm saying. So it's like that fine line, like, I shared earlier what my
Right.
profession is. And honestly, in the back of my mind, I was like, should I even said that? You're just so cautious right now with
Cautious.
so
I
many
get that.
different things. But anyway, to answer your question, I would just love to see where else this podcasting journey can take me, because I mean, it's been beautiful. Just the different people I've been able to meet, the things I've been able to do, and being able to kind of push me out of my fear and tap into my creativity in a certain degree.
Absolutely. You'll be amazed how much this craft, this industry, of podcasting would just open up doors. Like, wow, I didn't realize that would be a thing.
Yep.
That wasn't on my bingo card, but
Yep.
hey, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. No, I love that. I love all of this. For sure. So we're rounding third, heading home here. I just want to say thank you so much for
Oh, thank you
coming
for having
on
me.
the Dripping in Black podcast. Like I said, I've definitely am a new fan of your work and a
Thank you.
subscriber now of your work, and I really love your interview style and the curiosity and everything. You're probably familiar with Terry Gross, since you like NPR. She
Yes,
she
yes.
always says
Fresh air.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. She's one of my mentors from afar, is what I like to say.
Oh, yes. I
Mentors
like.
from afar, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but no, she always says she just follows the curiosity, right? You know how people say follow the money, she just follows the
Yeah. Yep.
curiosity. So, I can see that in what you do, and I'm
Thank
definitely an
you.
admirer of that. So, I'm curious because we talked about at the top of the show that you like your jazz and you like your hip hop. I know you're a
Mm-hmm.
fan of a Tribe Called Quest, who just recently been inducted
Yes.
into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So
Yes,
kind of
and I
yeah,
posted it on my Instagram page
you
too. I
did,
should
you
have
did.
tagged.
I
I should
saw
have
that.
tagged. I should have tagged Q-Tip.
You should have. You should have. You should have. But just kind of talk about your love of music a little
Oh
bit.
my gosh, where do I start? So we can just start with the Tribe Called Quest off the top. Anyone who knows
Okay.
me well knows I love a Tribe Called Quest. Although I was finding after they were inducted into the Hall of Fame, there was an album that they dropped that I was not even familiar with, and I was like, here I am talking about, I love me some a Tribe Called Quest, and I was like, I had never heard of this album, so I need to what do you call it, brush up on that. But
Right.
when I think about music, music has just been instrumental in my life in so many different ways. So I'll start with, I talked about how I like Wynton Marsalis, and I remember I remember when I was first introduced to his music. I was in high school, and actually, it was this guy that was in a jazz band that I had a crush on. And so anyway, he and I became friends, and we were talking about jazz. And at the time, I knew about like Kenny G, and nothing wrong with Kenny
Hmm.
G, Najee, and I guess I wouldn't say like more. I wouldn't say like mainstream jazz, but not like more traditional jazz. So this guy
Okay.
that was in the jazz band, he gave me he made a tape for me. Yeah, I'm taking it back. He made
I
a
ain't
tape
mad
of
at
me.
it. I ain't
He
mad
made
at
a
it.
tape of Wynton Marsalis, and that kind of sparked my interest. And a lot of times when I think about music, I can think about different parts of my life that were significant. And then when I think about hip hop, when I think about Tribe Called Quest, I can think about like different parts of my life. Like when I said like old school hip hop, I'm talking about like MC Light,
Okay.
Special Ed. I used to be big and heavy D in the boys, but it just kind of triggers very positive memories for me in my life. And
Got you.
sometimes even when life be life and I can go
Hmm.
back to music, even when I'm preparing for different podcasts, and I think it puts me in a certain space to kind of help me get through. So music can definitely be healing.
I love that. No, it definitely can be healing and definitely sometimes nourishment for the soul, especially
Yeah.
when an artist can like just hit you with the right lyrics. Like,
Yep.
man, are you in the side in the passenger seat of my life
Yes.
right now?
Yes.
Because you clearly understand where I'm going through here. Let me ask you this real quick, Kay. Uh, if we turned your life into a movie,
Oh, a
right?
movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
into
a
a
movie.
movie.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Who's on the soundtrack?
Oh.
Who's on the soundtrack?
All right. Well, if Q-Tip's up to it, we can, hit up Q-Tip, Winton. But when I think about a group that I think really kind of captures, I think me and my personality. Another one of my favorite hip hop groups is a Digable Planets. But I think Digable Planets, even if I wasn't able to get Winton or Q-Tip, if I
Hmm.
could just get like them, I don't know, because it's like that blend of hip hop and jazz, and
Yep.
I think Dick will play. I was like, if they could do my whole soundtrack, well, I mean, I still want Q-Tip, and but I was like, if
Yeah.
I think I'd be good.
How about a
I think they could do it.
nice little collaboration
Nice
between
little
Digable Planets
collabo.
and Q-Tip? I'm here
Now
for it.
that would be fly. I don't think they've ever done it. That would be
I don't
hot.
think so, but
That would be hot.
that would be
Yes.
dope. That would
Yes. So
definitely
I would
be
say
dope.
Dick will plan is if we could, work something out. I think that would be wonderful.
Got you. No, I love
Mm-hmm.
that. I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So before I ask this last question, I just want to thank you so much again for coming on the
Thank you.
show. And again, Dripping in Black family, if you want to get some of this drip, dibkdripshop.com. Hey, listen, we got to move merch around here, okay? You know how I go. We got to move some merch around here. So dibkdripshop.com for all your merch and accessories from Dripping in Black. And so, ask this question, S Square's got a gift for you, so he's gonna cue it. He's getting ready to cue that up for you here. Send something back real nice for you back to the DMV. So I want to ask
Oh, that's
you.
so nice.
Oh yeah, we like I said, we
You do.
support right
I
here.
was
We
like,
do.
now I'm gonna be dripping in black. I wore a black shirt just because I was
Yeah,
gonna be
see,
dripping in black.
I was gonna point that out. Like it's clearly Kay got the memo, right? Black on black around here. I love it. I love it. So when you think about the prospects and what you where you want to take the podcast and things of that nature, when it's all said and done, what do you want the legacy of K Wilkes to be? Big
So
question. Simple question, but big question.
yes, I think the biggest thing is um, someone who someone who sparked people's curiosity to really think deeper about the world around them, and try to make the world better with just yeah, tried to make the world better in whichever way that she could. I mean, it is kind of like a very heavy question, but rather it be like my parents, my sister, my nieces, my nephew, or whoever knows me. I just want them to I want them to feel proud, like you know,
Feel that.
she operated in her truth, and despite what we're up against in this world. Like the world's trying to tell us things that really don't align with who we are morally. Just kind of staying the course and just being true to yourself. I mean, as a Black woman, you don't need to emulate some of these people that are being given platforms. As a Black male, you don't need to do that either. Be true to you and what's true to yourself. You don't have to drop certain words in your hip hop songs. Be you, because there is a place and a space where we need that. We need something a little bit more refreshing because we are on two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And when people listen to my podcast, I want it to be the type of podcast that, even though it's not a family podcast, but if your son or daughter happens to be in the car and it's on, you don't feel like you have to cover their ears. I'm not going to be dropping a whole bunch of N words or whatever. Just certain things. I was like, and it's okay. And sometimes when you're a Black creative, sometimes I feel like people try to put you in a box, and you have to tell yourself, it's like, my world is larger than
Right.
it's larger than this.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being true to yourself. So I just think, just really kind of sparking curiosity. I want people to just really think deep about the world around them. And for the people that are close to me, I want them to be proud of the legacy that I left and know that I was being true to myself.
I love that. I love that. It's always interesting when people try to put people in the box and then they get to know the person, realize the box wasn't large enough.
That's right. That's right.
Box wasn't large enough.
Yep.
But,
agreed.
Absolutely. So, now I want to, here at Dripping in Black, we're always trying to do something for our guests to kind of immortalize our conversation and our talk today. And we want to do that in Black excellence, as we always do. Right. And so S Square is going to pop up on the screen here because he has a gift for you, because we want to share with you that, listen, we think the Pondering Thoughts podcast is on the really big things,
thank you
right?
so much.
Really big things. And we want to make sure that we were here at Dripping in Black was able to highlight where we thought we see you going. And so, as you can see,
so nice.
That is a magazine cover with talking about Pondering Thoughts and this, that, and the other. And S Square in a few weeks is going to send that to you to immortalize, our conversation here today. What do you think?
That is beautiful. That is so nice. I was like, oh God. Well, if people are listening, they can't see it, but it's almost like this little sunrise thing going in the background. It's like this light is illuminating behind my face. I'm all for it. That's so thoughtful. That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you. That's so nice. I appreciate that. That's beautiful.
Of course. Like I said, S Square to send that to you in the coming weeks. So, Kay, if you would just kind of share, all of your social media handles, where people can find you, kind of plug the podcast a little bit,
Sure.
if you would.
Yes. Yep. So again, Kay Wilkes, Pondering Thoughts podcast. So on social media, you can find me at Pondering Thoughts podcast. So right now I'm on Instagram, Facebook, not as active, but maybe you can help me with that. If you follow me, maybe we can increase those numbers. But I am a lot more active on Instagram than Facebook. But yeah, so at Pondering Thoughts, all one word, at Pondering Thoughts podcast. And in terms of listening to the podcast, right now I'm just primarily audio, although you can see a couple video clips on Instagram. But if you check out any of the major platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Podbean, you can Buzzsprout, so you can pretty much find me on all major platforms. So definitely check us out. We have some wonderful guests, wonderful topics. And again, the goal is to spark your curiosity and to help you to just really challenge you to think deeper about the world around you. And I hope that after you listen to it, it may get you to either explore the topic, think deeper about it, spark conversation. So definitely tune in at Pondering Thoughts podcast.
I love that. Yes, Driven in Black family, if you love thoughtful conversations, you definitely want to check out the Pondering Thoughts podcast. Thank you so much, Kay. And thank you so much, Driven in Black family, for having us here on this very conversational and thought-provoking episode of the Driven in Black podcast. Please, if you would, once again, hey, we got to move this merch, people. DIBKDripShop.com. Make sure you get all your merch and things from that nature. Thank you, S Square, for letting me be the guest host. And more importantly, thank you, Drippin' in Black family, for allowing me to serve you in this capacity once again. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting. And thank you for subscribing. And until then, next time, be kind, be excellent on purpose, and keep it black. It's a choice. Peace. And that's it.
Dominic, that was a fantastic conversation.
The Dripping in Black podcast is taking a mid-season break as we gear up for the Creators Retreat. Want to register or become a sponsor? Visit dibkproductions.com/DIBK Retreat for details. We'll be back on March 18th. Stay tuned.
Thanks for vibing with us. Keep the conversation going. Like, subscribe, and follow at DIBK20 on social media. Visit drippinginblack.com for all things Dripping in Black and dibkdripshop.com for your drip and other merch. Until next time, be well and much love.
You have just experienced a Dripping in Black production.